Well, if you are online at all as a baseball fan and you enjoy looking at baseball clips like I do, whether you're on any of the platforms, but specifically for me, the X platform, but you're familiar with Pitching Ninja, okay? You're familiar with all of the fantastic social media content that Rob Friedman puts out through the Pitching Ninja social media apps and platforms and all of that. It's just tremendous stuff. We've all been enjoying it for a lot of years, and Rob has become one of the foremost experts on pitching in Major League Baseball, and he's written a new book. It's sitting behind me right there. It's called Unhittable: How Technology, Mavericks, and Innovators Engineered Baseball's New Era of Pitching Dominance. And we're going to talk to him about the book and get his insights on the Phillies pitching staff a little bit too here over the next few minutes. Rob, welcome to Hitting Season. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I have been following your accounts for years and have enjoyed it. You, by the way, have the coolest logo. I've been so envious of I'm sure you must sell a ton of hats and t-shirts, and I know you sell all that stuff, but it's so brilliant. Who came up with the Pitching Ninja logo?
It was Kenny from RotoWare. Like, he just approached me one day and DM'd me and said, "Hey, I got an idea for a logo." And he showed me and I was like, "Dude, that's awesome."
Yeah. Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. Totally marketable too. So, but I mean, like I said, you have become one of the guys who I think even, major league pitchers have touted you. They've obviously written some glowing recommendations for your book. Tarek Skubal, one of the best in the business, is one of them. And you really do a great job of diving into why we are seeing pitchers with such dynamic stuff nowadays. I mean, it seems like every pitching staff has at least a half a dozen, if not more, pitchers who are able to get up into the upper 90s. And I remember a time when Billy Wagner was in Philadelphia and everybody salivated over whether or not he was going to come close to hitting 100 on the gun. And now there's probably a dozen to 24 pitchers in baseball who are around there. And Andrew Painter made his major league debut for the Phillies last night, throwing 97, 98 miles an hour. Those guys used to be unicorns, and now it seems like we see them all the time, especially at the top end of the starting rotation. So what's behind this? I mean, there's obviously a lot of different things, but you talk about a guy named Tom House, who is really kind of at the beginnings of getting pitchers to kind of change how they do things, right?
Yeah, Tom is probably the first dude to kind of take pitchers apart. He worked with Nolan Ryan, so he was able to dissect Nolan Ryan's mechanics, and his idea was, Nolan Ryan's not a special human. Like, he's big, he's strong, but he's got two legs and arms like everybody else and moves a certain way. So how can I make more people throw like that? And he started doing something simple, like looking at pictures and stuff. Now we have like biomechanical labs and lots of other things that we can measure how pitchers move. We can really engineer pitchers to throw harder. And that's really the difference. It used to be you were either born with it or not, and people thought you couldn't teach someone to throw harder. Now we can teach everything. Like, we can teach throwing hard. We can, through lifting, through proper mechanics, we can teach pitch design to help you throw nastier pitches. We can tell you where to spot a pitch on a batter to get them out. Like, pitchers have a ton of technology in their favor that didn't exist back in the day. And honestly, maybe some of these olden time pitchers might have been better than they were. Like, I'm not saying that we're unique today. This is technology that could make pitchers better at any era.
So what are some of the things specifically that is available now today that wasn't around 30 years ago that really is helping pitchers to access the type of velocity that we didn't see for such a long time?
Well, things like weighted balls. Weighted balls was something that people thought were going to hurt you. Instead, it actually helps you build up your arm, helps you recruit more muscles from your body to throw harder. We have biomechanical labs that, you put markers on your body to see how you move and compare it to the high-end pitchers. We now know that back in the day, they used to look for farm strong pitchers. Like, hey, if you were on a farm, you were a strong dude, but don't lift weights because you might get muscle bound. Now we know that you can lift, you can do strength and conditioning, get strong just like you would if you were on a farm. And we have programs to do it. So we have pitchers now. If you go back and look at games from the 70s and 60s, you had guys that were kind of out of shape. Now you have guys that pretty much most pitchers strong and athletic. So many different things, force plates, slow-mo cameras too, to capture each bit of movement that somebody has. So, and access to video on how other pitchers move. Before, it used to be pictures, like you were lucky to get a good picture of somebody. Now you have video of every game.
Yeah, you don't see the Rick Rushells of the world anymore here in modern baseball. And for you, for those of you listening who are too young to know that name, I would like for you to go look up a highlight of the 1989 All-Star game, the Bo Jackson game, and just enjoy watching Rick Rushell sling it. It's a good time. So, but I mean, we have seen all of these different technologies emerge, and obviously we are seeing pitchers throwing harder, and we'll get into the nastier breaking stuff in a minute too, because it's not just velocity that we're seeing an uptick in, but you do address in your book some of the issues that we've had with injuries. Obviously, the Phillies had Andrew Painter debut, like I just said a second ago, but we were supposed to see him 2 years ago. And of course, he suffered a UCL injury that required Tommy John surgery, forced him to miss all of 23 and 24, and was working his way back from it last year. Now finally is here and still young, and so everything looks like it's working out. And for most of the pitchers who get Tommy John, they are able to come back from it. Not all of them, but most of them. But there is that concern. I mean, and there have been books written about this. You know, Jeff Passan's written a book about it. You know, it's a worry that we do have pitchers who are requiring the surgery more frequently than we used to. So is that a trade-off? I mean, is there an inherent danger to injury by doing some of these things that pitchers are doing nowadays?
There's a little bit of a trade-off, definitely. I mean, anytime you're an athlete, you're redlining your body. There's not a lot of athletes that are just so much better than anybody that they don't have to go 100%. So you have pitchers that when you're being judged on velo, you're pushing yourself. You're an athlete, you're competitive. You want to hit that number because you know that that's going to mean more money to you or more success on the field. And velo does correlate very highly with good results for hitters. So you are going to drive yourself to do that. But also the ready availability of surgeries and the good outcomes of it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, you were just washed up. You had dead arm and you were never heard from again. Now we can fix you and get you back on the field. It's like there were no open heart surgeries in the 1700s because the patient would die. Now we can do it and get you out of the hospital right away. So part of it is the success of the surgery and part of it is redlining bodies.
I want to talk about, we just mentioned breaking pitches and some of the nasty stuff we've seen right now. And obviously the biomechanics can help with that a lot. But how are pitching coaches too at the major league level and the coaching staffs, like what kind of things are they doing to try and help pitchers access new pitches, for example? I mean, Jesus Luzardo figures out a whole new pitch last year and suddenly is a Cy Young contender, right? I mean, like this is not an unusual story. We've been seeing this more and more over the last few years.
There's so many different ways to do it. And some of it relies on ultra slow-mo cameras like Edgertronic, so you can see exactly how the ball's leaving your hand. We discovered new forces on the baseball, amazingly, after like 150 years, seam shifted wake. So now we can design pitches that move not just based on the spin of the ball, but based on the spin axis of the ball that pitchers knew back in the day. Like they said, oh, it caught a seam or it moved funny when I did this. But we weren't able to know why and weren't able to replicate it. So that's why the sweepers taken off, or things like wicked two-seamers that move like ridiculous amounts, more than you could ever have imagined. So those are things that help you design pitches. And then things like, so Orion Kerkering, for example, learned a pitch from my Dropbox. Like he learned it from my YouTube channel or my Dropbox and just looked at other pitchers, because I do interviews with everybody and I get them to share grips and, they pick it up. So there's a bunch of cool ways to learn it, but also just looking at people's arsenals, and no longer are pitches like mysteries. We now know how they move, and we can say, you're missing this pitch because you look at a scatter plot of pitches and you say, oh, if you only had this, you'd be more effective. And then you can learn it.
So who is your favorite pitcher to watch right now? Do you have a favorite, a guy you just can't miss?
Well, one that is maybe under the radar for some fans out there is Nolan McLean. Like, I love his stuff. It's designed in a lab for me, basically. It gets ridiculous moving east to west. He throws hard. He's a competitor. I love guys like that. I love the way he throws, and it just makes for some amazing content. Someone like Paul Skeens, obviously. Someone like Tarek Skubal, obviously. They're Cy Young Award winners. They have great work ethic, great dudes. But Nolan McLean kind of flies a little bit under radar if you don't pay careful attention.
Now, give me a pitcher who maybe isn't a hard thrower, somebody who doesn't throw 96, 97, 98, maybe someone who lives in the 92s, 93, 94 mile an hour range. And and really has to rely on secondary pitches to kind of and command to full, because that was the name of the game back in the day. Like Greg Maddux is a prime example of this, and maybe the greatest example of this we've ever seen. Command, and the movement on his two-seamer was, I mean, that's nasty in and of itself, but he was not a guy who was going to blow the ball by you. He just could put the ball wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and was maybe the smartest pitcher we've ever seen, kind of knowing how to read hitters. Who is there a guy, not to that level, of course, but who's a guy in Major League Baseball right now that you think is just kind of like an artist in terms of being able to set hitters up and maybe doesn't have 97 and 98 miles an hour in the tank?
Well, I mean, Ranger Suarez has shown some of that. Like he is a kind of an old school pitcher. Kyle Hendricks, obviously, everybody knows, kind of almost modeled himself after Greg Maddux. Yamamoto throws hard, but he doesn't throw 100. But to me, that is the ultimate example of a pitching artist because he dots everything almost exactly where he wants to. He's a combination of like Pedro and Greg Maddux, very smart dude who takes his pitching extremely seriously.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of Phillies questions then. As you look at this Phillies pitching staff, and you can look at starters or relievers here, but who has the best overall stuff on the Phillies pitching staff right now?
I mean, I love Duran coming in. I've always loved him. I've loved him since he was on the Twins. I think his stuff is like when you're throwing 100-mile-an-hour splinkers and, ridiculous knuckle curves and, topping at 105 miles an hour on the bump. It's hard not to like that. Number of good pitchers. Like I really like what I saw out of Andrew Painter. I've seen him in the last few years. Obviously a great pitching talent. Zach Wheeler. I mean, Zach Wheeler seems to be the model for so many pitchers nowadays. He's really opened up the eyes of a lot of guys, including like Brian Wu modeled his stuff after Zach Wheeler. So I think Wheeler's highly influential and an extremely talented pitcher.
All right, so that's give me some names of Phillies pitchers you really like, but who has the best single pitch on the Phillies in the Phillies in the Phillies pitching staff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say Duran Splinker or his knuckle curve. I would give him either one of those because I wouldn't want to face it, nor does any hitter.
Last thing for you here, Rob. I mean, so we I think we're all acknowledging maybe this is the greatest era of pitching in Major League history. I know when they raised the mound, everything got pretty kooky there for a couple of years, and then hitters adjusted. Do you see hitters adjusting to what pitchers are doing now? And I sometimes watch pitchers do the things they do, and I don't know how anyone ever gets a hit. I mean, they're pros. They all been doing this their whole lives, so I get it. We see the home runs and everything, but how hard, what kind of a place are we in right now in terms of the most difficult it's ever been for hitters to hit?
You nailed it. It is the most difficult it's ever been for hitters to hit. And it's very hard for them to catch up. And that's part of the underlying theme of the book is, like, I go over some of the technologies they use to try to catch up, like Traject, which mirrors the pitches they're going to see in a game as the same arm slot and everything. So you can take away a pitcher's nasty pitch by seeing it over and over again. But it's really hard because baseball's a weird sport in that the offense doesn't have the ball. The offense, I consider a pitcher on offense, and the hitter's counterpunching or has to react. And when you're reacting and somebody knows your weakness, can put the ball where they want, can throw a pitch as nasty as they want, and throw it as hard as they want, and take as much time and mess with your timing as much as they want to, it's really hard to be a hitter. And I hope that that's something people get out of it and understand about the sport. So stop yelling at guys for why did you swing at that? Understand that tunneling and everything else makes it really hard for hitters. But two, there are technologies that will help them compete. There is a very high talented hitter pool. And then there maybe have to be adjustments. ABS is one of them. Like, at least you're getting consistent strike zones that a hitter now knows where the strike zone is, and you can make it bigger or smaller. In future years, maybe they'll make it smaller and give hitters a little bit more of an advantage, make pitchers have to come in the zone a little bit more. That's really going to be the name of the game, is driving pitchers to be in the zone more and letting hitters chase less. But it's hard. I mean, maybe technologies like AI to pick up pitch tipping is another thing.
Yeah.
I know I've gone through Phillies pitchers, and they have had some issues pitch tipping from time to time. Luzardo was one of them.
Yeah.
And you can use AI to pick it up pretty easily, and also help, on your end, eliminate that pitch tipping.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's tough time to be a hitter.
Yeah, and to pitch tipping. I mean, you don't realize how much the AI is into that, because I mean, you just used to have to just use your eyes and stuff, and now you've got AI. I know I said that was the last one. One more real quick thing for you. What do you think about the ABS, the new automatic ball strike system? You like the challenges? Is it good for baseball?
I love it. Like, it is one of my favorite things. I think it adds some gamesmanship to the sport. It shows off another talent that players have, like knowing the strike zone or not knowing the strike zone. It makes catchers potentially more valuable, and also makes umpires accountable. And we've been seeing guys get away with these crappy strike zones for so long. No more. And I love it. Like, give me that. I love it.
CB Buckner is having a time so far here in the early stages of
I
2026.
cried a tear for it.
I know, right? Everybody's single tier for CB Buckner. Well, folks, make sure you run out. If you're interested in this kind of thing, you love baseball content and you want to learn more about the pitching side of the game. First of all, there's no better follow on social media than @PitchingNinja. But you want to check out Rob Friedman's book, Unhittable: How Technology, Mavericks, and Innovators Engineered Baseball's New Era of Pitching Dominance. Rob, thank you for joining me here on Hitting Season. It's a pleasure. Hope we can do it again down the road.
Thanks for having me on. It's great.